Why do you always no? God damn it! Why do you have to do the damn Ken Kniff shit? Like seriously? Damn it, dude! What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the latest, greatest, and newest episode of the Battle Bros podcast with Mac and Alamo. I am Mac. This fly-looking homeboy over here on my side is Alamo. Yeah, we're gonna do a podcast and talk words and shit. So yeah, it's gonna be fun.
Do it.
How the fuck are you, man? What's going on?
Outstanding, bruh.
Good.
Especially after freaking getting that contact from the lady from Mission Barbecue. That should be sweet.
Yeah,
Especially if we could do an episode at one of their little branches, kind of just take a seat and kind of be like, oh yeah.
Like I said, I'm a little bit worried because people are gonna see me stuffing my face at barbecue. I'm gonna have like the clown, like the greasy clown smile of like barbecue sauce. But their barbecue is so good. Shout out to Mission Barbecue. You guys are fucking awesome. Like cool thing, cool vibe.
Yeah.
Like just all the way around. It's just badass stuff. So
and just great service to freaking veterans, man. Holy
absolutely.
Shit.
It's good stuff. And first responders.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna get those guys. So if you're new to the show, welcome. We are two buddies from high school that have known each other for a long damn time.
Some would say too long.
Too long, potentially. So we've both known each other for a long damn time. It's an amazing feat that we even get a podcast produced, conceptualized, produced, researched, and then presented to the people because we literally get together and just do dumb stuff and dick dance. So it's amazing. So, but hopefully you like what you see. You know, we've been doing this. This is episode 56 056 of the Battle Bros podcast. So, you know, we hopefully kind of have an idea of the rhythm of things right now. So if you want to go check us out, we have various avenues to do that. You can listen to us on the different podcast apps and services that are out there, from Apple Music to Spotify to iHeartRadio, all that good shit. We also have a YouTube channel. If you just want to search Battle Bros Podcast, give it a look-see. We have a lot of topics that we've talked about. We kind of want to break down the stigma about talking about shit. You know, a lot of guys from past and, you know, the stigma with a lot of guys in the past has been like, oh, don't talk about it, you know, bury your feelings, let it develop into an ulcer, and don't talk about it, and don't be a pussy. So it's like, all right.
Not exactly the most conducive to keeping yourself healthy.
Not at all. So
especially from what I found out.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully, you know, if you're watching this for the first time, you're going to like what you see. If not, hey, feel free to let us know. Like if you want to say we suck, okay. That's great, but I would like some feedback. Tell us why and what we can do to make it better. Understand that we also are going to be subjective and may take your complaint and throw it in the trash. So just, you have been warned. So if you caught our episode last week, we were talking about communication. That's episode 055. Talked about communication on a lot of different levels, from the verbal to nonverbal, written, gestural, the different styles. You have passive, you have aggressive, you have passive aggressive, and you also have assertive. So that was a pretty good conversation. I think we ended up going almost into the 2-hour range with that. So it was a longer one.
Hour and a half ish.
Hour and a half, yeah. I think the stigma on men's mental health one before that was a 2-hour one.
That was almost 2 hours. Yeah.
If you don't get a chance to catch our episodes and they're not out on the podcast services yet or anywhere where you can listen to podcasts, you can always go to YouTube. You can watch us. We do some dumb stuff. You might just sit there and be like,
catch us on the Rumble.
Catch us on the Rumble, all that good stuff. So we are out there. Just come find us, you know, come at us, bro.
Come at me, bro.
Yeah, bro. And the ladies too. We welcome the ladies. So if you're here watching us, thanks for stopping by.
By the way,
like we said, what's up?
Oh, this handsome guy's single, ladies. So, yeah.
Wow, that's really throwing my fucking business out there. That's but he's like George Washington. He cannot tell a lie. Well, at least he's not in this case. So yeah, good stuff. So we're gonna do something for the first time this season. If you caught our last season, season 2, we actually got to do a fun segment on the show called the VIP, the Veteran Interview Panel, and that's what we're gonna do tonight. So for episode 056. We're going to bring it back. We're going to keep it going. So this is the 6th installment of our sub-series called the Veteran Interview Panel. We are fortunate to have a gentleman on the show with us who has done some cool shit. Pretty badass shit. I mean, listen, when you rappel out of a with a holstered attack dog. It's like
Yeah.
that beam of Nick Fury. It's like, oh, that escalated quickly. Fuck yeah! So, without further ado, let's bring on our guest, Alamo. This is Kyle. Kyle is a buddy of mine that I've known for a few years. What's up, man? Hey,
Howdy.
howdy. So,
What's
Kyle,
happening, brother?
to the Battle Bros podcast, my man. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming
Glad to
on.
be on here.
Yeah, man. Good stuff. So, tell us a little bit about yourself. Do you like long walks on the beach?
I do enjoy long walks on the beach. I would say mountain trails are probably
Now we're
style,
talking. Yeah. Good shit. Awesome.
So
All right.
basically, I kind of followed the same path that a lot of guys did around my and our generation. 9/11 happened right before I graduated.
I appreciate this guy is getting right to the nitty gritty. Like, let's fucking get into the damn weeds,
Yeah,
man.
right.
We got
Yeah,
frags, we got smoke grenades, we got flashbangs, we
yeah,
got like a full combat load of shit. Let's go.
Let's go for it.
Let's go fucking hit that OBJ.
So,
How about it? So
grew
do
up.
it.
My dad was in the Army. He was a paratrooper. He jumped into Panama. Obviously, he was a combat medic. So phenomenal role model for me. I always kind of knew that I was going to join the military, but then 9/11 happened, and it really kind of honed exactly what I thought I needed to do.
kind of pretty much cemented that reality into
Absolutely,
existence.
Yep, for
Gotcha.
sure. So I wouldn't say he steered me towards combat medicine, but I always kind of aligned more with infantry and especially Ranger Regiment type infantry, the special operations community.
So what was your first exposure to Ranger Regiment? Like when did you first see it and look at it and go, yeah, that's what I want to do? I mean, was it talking to your dad, going into Panama and all that stuff, or
It was a little bit of it. I would say I remember a conversation that we had where up until then I was kind of dancing around and wasn't sure what I wanted to do. But
Sure.
I mentioned that I was thinking about becoming an infantryman, and I thought that really, lined up with what I wanted to do. And he said something to the effect of, well, if you want to be an infantryman, you need to be the best infantryman that's out there. And that's an Army Ranger. And I was like, tell me more. So
would you like to know more?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exactly what I need to do. And
Yeah.
everything that I read, everything that I saw, basically, it showed that Ranger Regiment exemplified, the top-notch dudes that everybody wanted to be there. Everybody wanted to go out and get in gunfights and, do a lot of very, very bad things to very bad people. So
out of curiosity, I know when I before I joined the military specifically, I started getting into like books and movies and shit. Like, did you get into like all the books and the movies and stuff before you joined? And I was like, oh yeah, that's what the fuck I'm gonna do. Like, I'm gonna
for sure. Yeah, I think that
yeah.
I would say the biggest one that really resonated with me was watching the movie Platoon with Charlie Sheen, where he's
It's a good
he's
one.
that nameless, faceless soldier that just wants to go out and do something on the right cause for his country, and that
Worthwhile. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Not go out, not trying to be a hero, not trying to get medals, but try to do something that you believe in. And I think that hit home pretty good.
That makes me think.
Gotcha.
I can't remember the last time I've seen that movie. I need to go back and watch that now. Like, seriously.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's
I
so
have
good.
that movie
So-
on Blu-ray. I think I watch that movie at least once a year.
Oh yeah, yeah.
At least once a year.
It's one of the good
Definitely.
ones where you just gotta go over. It's kind of like watching like Band of Brothers. You just gotta go through the whole series like once a year. It's just like, oh, so
Exactly.
good.
Yeah.
That Saving Private Ryan and all those like good World War II movies,
definitely.
Yes.
fucking awesome. So, all right, so 9/11 happened. You pretty much cemented. You knew. So when did you actually go and enlist?
I graduated high school. It was like June 2003, so I enlisted at that point. Thankfully,
Okay.
having my dad that knew the game, he said, as soon as the recruiter starts talking, or as soon as the people at whatever it was called, 30th
30th AG.
No, not 30th. It's before that, where you're actually MEPS.
MEPS. Yeah. MEPS.
We said when they start fucking around, because they're going to. When they start telling you they don't have contracts and all that stuff, just call me. And I was like, all right, sounds good. So I get in there, go through the physical and all that stuff. I'm ready to enlist. And they're like, all right, let's talk about jobs.
That's amazing. It's like you enlisted, and it's like, hi, I'm Kyle. I'm here to enlist. This is my dad. He's my agent.
Yeah.
This is Jerry. This is my version of Jerry Maguire.
Yep.
Show me the money.
Who just so happens to be an active duty first sergeant. So
So your dad was on active duty.
yeah, he was. Yep. So he was still active when I joined.
okay.
Which was
Okay.
pretty
Good
cool.
shit.
So
Good
he
shit.
he walks in, he says something to the effect of, you can pick up the phone and you can get my son a contract to go through selection for basic airborne and RIP right now, which RIP was the selection to get into Ranger Regiment at the time. And there was a little bit of back and forth, but basically the guy did exactly that. And I was lucky enough to enlist with an option 40 contract, which pretty much guarantees you a start date as long as you don't get hurt or quit at anything along the pipeline to become a Ranger. So that was kind of my entry into the world of being hazed and beaten and shown the angry side of the military. But for
Welcome, new guy. You are not even worth the excrement that our boots have stepped in on this
Yeah.
long nature trail. Welcome.
Yep,
Ah, the good old days.
pretty much. Yeah.
Ah, Jesus, man. Okay. So you obviously you went to Benning. So
Yeah,
when did
Benning
you
was
get to Benning?
basic, airborne, and then RIP. And it was funny at the end of airborne school because it's all, back to back. So you get to the end, you graduate, everybody thinks they're heroes except for all the dudes that are going to RIP. They pull you to the side and they say, awesome, well, everybody else is leaving with their family. RIP starts now. So we had to death run with all of our bags, which was like a mile down the road to get to where 3rd Bat is and where the RIP barracks were. And the hazing for about 4 weeks was just incredible. I think we went from, it was like 260 guys, I think, that started selection. And then there were 60 of us or 66 or something like that ended up, and they wanted a lot of guys. So that was kind of a looser, selection. So yeah, it was interesting. A piece of me died there for sure.
I've left so much blood, sweat, and tears on damn Fort Bird Benning. It's like they have my DNA scattered all through the Georgia mountains.
Yes, without question. So, and then I had managed pretty well to be a gray man through RIP selection, which was the goal. At the end of it, it's kind of determined by how many, the needs of each battalion at that point. But I knew I didn't want to go to 3rd Bat, which was Benning. I was open to going to 2nd Bat, which was in Washington State, but I really wanted to go to Savannah or 1st Bat. And I had played the gray man card well enough that I got in the line to go to 1st Bat, and one of the RIP instructors walked up and he was like, "Who the fuck are you?" I was like, I'm Oswald. I've been here the whole time. And he was like, "Well done."
That's amazing.
So, out of curiosity,
go ahead, Macho.
What phase was the most ass part of fucking training? Because I hear it from like different. Like, what was the most ass part of training when it came to RIP, man? You got to tell us, dude.
RIP has changed a little bit. It's no longer RIP. It's called RASP now.
Ranger Assessment and Selection Program. Yeah.
And supposedly, I think they do a little bit more work on like psych evals and trying to find the right, type of individual. For us in RIP, basically, it's just an entire 4 weeks of hazing. But the worst part of it is what's called Cole Range. So you go out to Cole Range, and that's basically where everybody either swims or drowns. Cole Range is pretty much, you don't sleep a whole lot. It varied how long you stayed out there, depending on the class. Most classes, I think, were about 5 days. I think we were like 7 or 8, but it just turns into a blur at that point. You're just pushing. You get so far past the point of being exhausted that, afterwards, I went to Ranger School. I went to a lot of other schools, and nothing compared to RIP. RIP was, and Cole Range specifically, it was the hardest that I've had to push without question. Combat was so much easier than going through RIP.
But isn't that kind of the point? Like, we're going to push you through some hard shit. So when you get to combat, you're like, oh yeah, this is easy.
Yep. And it's from their way of thinking. We were in the middle of the GWAT. They needed guys to show up that they knew. They were still going to mess with you, but they needed to know that you were at least a blank slate with potential that could possibly work out in regiment. They didn't have time to deal with, sorting through all the guys that just watched Black Hawk Down and thought it would be a cool story and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So, not that I haven't seen Black Hawk Down. Of course I have.
Yeah.
Because I'm a patriotic American. But you meet a lot of interesting characters and selections like that for sure.
Oh yeah. I don't know about, going through RIP because I never went that way, but like just going through basic, like you have just such a wide cross section and amalgamation of people from all over the country. You had like people from the big cities, you guys from New York that grew up in the Bronx and Brooklyn. You had guys from like podunk towns in Oklahoma and Kansas, and you had the surfer guys from California, and you had the Florida boys, and you had guys from Texas and all that kind of shit. And it's like it's just such a wide cross section. Like you really do meet like everybody you're ever going to meet, like
A
in one way,
lot
shape,
of
or
New
form.
Yorkers were
Yep.
still going through basic training around that time frame.
Oh, I'm sure, of course.
A lot of New
So
Yorkers.
the
Yeah.
question I wanted to ask Kyle. So what made you? So you said you knew that you either wanted to go to 1st or 2nd Battalion. What was it about 1st Battalion that kind of drew you there? Like that made you kind of want to push for that potential that duty station?
Well, several things. So third bat, Benning sucks. Anybody that's been there knows that town is just terrible. It's basically the entire town is like a praying mantis that is there to pick off of brand new privates coming out of basic. I mean, every corner has a used car lot and all that, and it's just.
I mean,
Yep.
to be fair, like
down with that.
when the main road in town is Victory Drive and it's nicknamed VD,
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Come on there. It's like,
And
Yeah.
so
there was also it was pretty well known that most of the people that just barely passed RIP got held to third bat. So I really didn't want to be in a battalion that, everybody considered to be full of a bunch of hooligans, for lack of a better word. And as I progressed and started deploying, we worked with second bat, we worked with third bat. Everybody always referred to third bat as turd bat. So I guess my guess was correct. I know some guys from third bat and they're good dudes, but there's a lot that scared me away from that place.
folks, real quick, let me interrupt. So this is what's great about these, because this is the kind of shit you're not going to get on these PC production.
Nah.
Like this is the nitty gritty kind of stuff that we people, inquiring minds want to know, and this is you're welcome. We're giving it to you. So you didn't want to go to turd bat.
I did not.
So
No. So Savannah, Hunter Army Airfield, it's a really small place. Regiment, has a battalion there, but really there's not much else. There's Fort Stewart is pretty close. So that's the nearest, regular Army base where we went to train a lot, but Hunter's pretty small. It's right near the beach. It's a good climate. That kind of sold me.
I mean, and I hear Savannah is just awesome.
It is.
Like,
yeah.
My brother's getting ready to take a cruise, and he's actually going out of Savannah. He's like, when we come back, it's going to be Patty's Day. I'm like, I hear.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, I hear Patty's Day is fucking awesome. I'm like,
Yeah.
that's what I've heard. It's like,
Yep.
sounds good.
I think it's the
But,
number 2 Patty's Day in the country, right behind Boston.
I think so. Yeah, I think that's.
Yeah.
I've somebody told me that once. Hell, it might have been you, Kyle. But
Yes.
yeah. So I remember going to Fort Stewart because when I came back from Afghanistan, we demobbed out of Fort Stewart and we were there for a couple of days, and we landed. I think we actually landed on Hunter Army Airfield.
Yeah.
And kind of
Yep.
they ferried us over to Fort Stewart. Like, okay, let's get away from all the expensive cool shit with cool guys and stuff.
All right, time to go.
Yeah, all you fucking nasty girls, like, let's go get on the bus. Let's go. So okay, so about what time did you get to 1st Battalion?
I think it was August or September of 2004 is when I got to battalion.
So the training pipeline, you were in for like it was probably like almost a good full year ish.
I think I left for basic on the 24th of February. So
Of 04.
yeah, of 2004.
Okay, so that's not that bad. That's like
Not-
8 months.
not terrible,
6
yeah.
months, 6 months.
Yeah. And I didn't get stuck in any kind of holdovers or anything like that. There was like a week and a half break between airborne or basic and airborne, and then RIP started immediately. So it wasn't like, you hear about guys going through SF selection or some of those places where they sit for like 6 months or 8 months or something. And that thankfully didn't happen to me.
Hell, I remember there were some guys that were when we were at Reception Battalion. There were guys that were sitting there for like fucking almost a full month before they went down range, and like we were lucky. Well, I think it was like maybe a week, like 6 or 7 days. And then
Yeah.
I was fortunate because the battalion I was in was like right down the road. Right
Nice.
there. I know all the battalions have kind of changed hands and stuff. Like, all right, so we're
Yeah.
gonna march down here, and then it's just like the shark attack happened. It's like, fuck, what did I just do?
Yeah.
I'm regretting my life choices. Holy shit! So
I
all
thought
right.
I had like the opposite reaction to basic. I thought it was so incredibly stupid and easy that I was angry the whole time. I was like, what did I do to so why am I here?
So I will say that there was one thing that came out. They actually within the last couple of years, they've actually increased. So infantry OSIT used to be 14 weeks, and now it's actually 22 weeks.
I heard that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there was actually when General Mattis was the I don't know if he was the chairman. was it the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, or I know he's in charge of CENTCOM or something. I think it was when he was Secretary of Defense, actually,
Yeah,
when he
Sec
was
Def.
out of uniform, when he was a Sec Def, he actually kind of put together some kind of like study talking about how to make, Marine and Army infantry units a lot more, increase their lethality, their effectiveness, and all that stuff. So that was one of the byproducts that came out of that.
Yeah.
Before he left office, before he left his post, and all that kind of stuff. But
Makes sense.
I would be curious to see how that's different. I mean, I don't know that I would want to go through basic training nowadays, and we're going to leave that comment alone for right now. We'll get back to that later. But it would be interesting to see. Like, I understand they're getting a lot more trigger time, which is good.
Yeah.
Like, that's always important. So
If you you remember Ernie from Shooter's World?
yeah,
he actually just went through. Like his plan was to get into the military, and he had some snags, but he finally went in. I guess
Really?
it was about 2 years ago, maybe. But he was telling me about that. He said that he had the extended OSINT. I thought it was. I mean, it can't be a bad idea.
he went infantry.
Uh-huh.
Nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah.
Good old Ernie, man. I miss that
Yeah.
guy. He was a good
Yeah.
dude.
He is a good dude.
Good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Wow, I haven't thought about him in a long damn time.
Mhm.
Okay, so you get to Savannah. You get to first bat in about August. So how long did you end up staying there? I know we're
we
kind of jumping ahead a little
deployed-
bit, but how long did you stay there?
I was in 1st Battalion the entire time I was in the Army, so I was there for 8 years.
Okay.
We were there. They had just gotten back from, I think it was Afghanistan for BICO, which I got picked to go to BICO. And I want to say we were there until, I think it was January. January 05 was my first deployment.
Okay.
So we ended up having a full training cycle and then going over, which worked out well for me being, brand new.
Nice. Nice.
So from what I can understand, then freaking Ranger bats are usually way higher op tempo than say your normal leg unit. I'm guessing, right?
Yes, typically. And it's
Like, what's your rotations like?
it was about, you would deploy for about 120, 150 days and then come back, do a training cycle, and then be basically on standby to deploy again. So it worked out. A lot of the special operations groups had the same kind of like 3 revolving groups that were, one was deployed, one was training, and one had just gotten back. So they kind of did the same thing. I mean, there was some shifting of gears and some new units that were created among some of the special operations community to do that, but it turned into a really good rhythm. So
Okay.
it kept us, because we went just balls to the wall. I mean, the night that you showed up, you would get your stuff ready, and then you'd be out on an operation either that night or immediately the next period of darkness. And then when it was time to go home, it was not out of the ordinary that we'd do an operation, come back, download all our ammo, and then get on a plane pretty quickly after that, within 4 or 5 hours. So it was always really quick.
So in your time, with the Ranger Battalion, you've probably worked with a pretty wide variety of different units and whatnot.
For sure.
When it comes to working with just traditional standard rank and file units for the Army, like what do you see as being a difference between like a traditional, regular Army unit, not regular Army, but just like a traditional, infantry style battalion versus, Ranger Battalion? I mean, obviously you got, the go-getter attitude, I imagine, is just like freaking, you got guys that are like fucking wanting to be there and like hit some pipe, that kind of stuff.
For sure, yeah. There are quite a few, and of course, I never served in a conventional unit, so I can't speak
That's the word I was looking for. Thank you.
completely. Yeah, but for us, there were and regiment fulfilled a new role in the GWAT, one that they hadn't really been in before, from as much as I can tell. You had the traditional, like, we'll go back to Black Hawk Down again, but the idea that Ranger Regiment is kind of sort of specialized, but not really a key player in SOF. So we were always kind of SOF adjacent. We would go out with either, one cool guy group or another one. They knew that we were probably trained a little bit better and had a little bit better attitude sometimes. So we were used as kind of security or blocking position type personnel, or, we would bring the machine guns that they didn't want to carry, basically. But in the GWAT, it turned into a real proving ground where we kind of showed, hey, doing these operations by ourselves, it's not a problem. We can knock all these out. We can compete at the same level. We can prosecute targets at the same level. We bring the same level of readiness, and we also have more equipment on a lot of the operations. So that's where it really kind of took off. My first deployment didn't really go so much like that. I think it was still a little bit before that realization, but things kicked off after second, third, fourth, I can remember my 6th, 7th, and 8th deployments were just completely independent. And we were prosecuting some very, very dangerous targets on a nightly basis, pretty much. So it was an interesting shift that I saw, and it was good to be a part of. I liked it.
Good stuff.
Another thing I think is in regiment, there's nobody there that doesn't want to be there. The second you say you quit, you're immediately taken off, active status, and you're kicked out of the Army completely if you messed up bad enough, or you're sent to, another unit, or you do something else. So for us, we thankfully didn't have to deal with a lot of, negative attitudes. If you didn't want to be there, it was cool, man. Like, this place isn't for everybody. Have a good one. Best of luck to you.
Gotcha.
So that helped a lot, I would think, too. And then just assets. I mean, the assets that we would bring to an average target was much more, I guess, well-rounded, from air assets to just everything else that we had. The abilities that we had on the ground were pretty cutting edge at most points.
So to kind of go along with Alamo's question earlier, talking about Ranger School. So once you've been in regiment for a while, what were some of the so break down, like, what were some of the things that you kind of like the notions about Ranger Regiment and the lifestyle and the mentality versus actually being there, like the kind of like the stigmas and all that kind of shit versus like actually being there, like, okay, this is what it's really like. So were there any of those? Like, if they were, like, how drastic were they, or not so much? Or
I think that I don't know if I had a preconceived notion of what Ranger Regiment was going to be like. I think I knew that it was going to be, a group of dudes that really wanted to be there and really wanted to go on deployments and do a lot of, crazy things. And that much was absolutely true. So I don't know that I had any misconceptions or any predisposed notions that got crushed later on.
okay,
I don't think so. Maybe I'm lying about that, but I don't.
I mean, listen, we're gonna take your word for it. I can tell you. Listen, I was in
a lot. I don't know.
The infantry unit that I was in. We were in the Guard, and we had a first sergeant by the name of Jack Yeager, who had been in 2 completely different companies in his entire career. He was in Bravo 175 and he was in Bravo 2nd of the 124 for the Florida Guard. So he came to the Guard as an E5, but like this guy, I mean, dude, I'm telling you, he, like, you could look at him and go, oh, that's a fucking Ranger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he was one of those guys, like, for the long time, it's like you couldn't wear any type of cold weather gear out in the field. Like, hey, no. If I'm wearing it, you can wear it. And he never wore this shit. It's like, well, you're just going to get used to tying your boots like this in the morning. Like, I mean, just harder than woodpecker lips, man. Like, But you know what? There was a lot of cool freaking. The guy was just, I mean, Jesus, he was just an encyclopedia of, like, technical knowledge.
Man, that reminds me of First Sergeant Bowman.
Was amazing.
My First Sergeant Bowman was actually. That was a bad motherfucker too, and he, he came to us tabbed out. He was, and I mean the ability of this guy to, like, train on marksmanship and just everything that he took from what he learned. You know what I mean? And he just brought it, man. But there's definitely that like, you can tell who they are when you see them. Like, I mean, the way everything from the way he, rolled his cap and, all that stuff. It was, and it was, that was a bad son of a bitch.
Kyle, you obviously know this better. But there's a part of the Ranger creed where it's just like, you're going to be, like, better trained, well equipped. And it's like, it's absolutely true. Most of the Rangers that I've met, like 95% of the people I know that were either in regiment or at least Ranger school, like, you can just tell they carry themselves differently. So, I mean,
it was an internal expectation, and I think everybody kind of shared it. It was, you are going to be the best that you can be, whether that means, shooting, running, everything that you're talking about, your medical knowledge, your understanding of communications equipment, everything that you think you need to know and more to be able to do any job that's expected of you. It's 110% and then some, for sure.
Like and we actually talked about this a while back. Like if you want to read, if you're not familiar with it, folks, if you want to read some motivating shit, go read the Ranger Creed, and it's just like, man, that'll get you fucking war chubby first thing in the goddamn morning. Like holy shit, like straight up. And you see guys out there in the middle of like in the PT formation, they're screaming at the top of their lungs. Everybody's got that freaking high and tight hair because like, damn, yeah. So let me ask you this. We're kind of get back to the interview here. So. About what time? So, how is it that you became associated with working with dogs, and when did you get certified as a dog handler and all that kind of stuff? Kind of go through that whole process, if you could.
For sure, yeah. So, the war on terror kind of brought trade. One of those was using multi-purpose canines. Some of the other groups had been doing that, and
Uh-oh.
Did we lose him?
I don't think we lost him. Oh, no. There we go. You're moving again. That happens.
There we go. You guys got me?
Hey, yeah, we got you 5x5, brother.
Okay. So I don't know how much you
were saying that other groups have had dogs previous to that, and the kind of war on terror obviously was kind of evolving how we did things with the Army and this, that, and the other.
Exactly, yeah. So, and then you can look back. There's some really good books out there about dogs being used in like World War II, even World War I, but Vietnam, Korea, some things like that. So, almost like the Ranger battalions used to be just activated during times of war. That kind of was sort of the mentality with some working dogs. There's always been like, police canine, and there's been some tracking dog, like combat tracking dogs. But what we started to do was what was called multi-purpose canines. So basically these dogs had to track people, they had to find bombs, and they had to bite people. So applying that to what we were doing, we were running around trying to take out, high value targets. It made sense to start using dogs to be able to add some abilities that we didn't have. And also, you don't want a dog to get hit, but when you get a really dangerous situation, if the dog can check something out first, that can be very beneficial in some situations. So there had been some rumblings of the dog program for a little while. I had just done, I think it was my 6th deployment. I was an alpha team leader. So I was an E5 at that point. Yeah. So.
Oh, just 6 deployments. No big
just
deal.
number 6, which actually was the most hellacious deployment I was on. Number 6 was a party for sure.
Was it just off tempo?
Yeah,
things are getting real sporty down here, sir.
They got pretty sporty. Basically, it was
love it.
Most of that deployment, we were targeting some very different type of foreign fighters. They were actually mercenaries, and they were there to do some very dangerous things, and they were actually really good at their jobs. So our deployment was to actually target them. So without saying too much more, they definitely made you earn it a lot more than your average shithead Taliban that was, had no idea what he was doing. These guys actually knew what they were doing. I mean,
they were professionals.
For sure they were.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. So after that deployment, I was promotable at that time. In Ranger Regiment, you get promoted super fast no matter what. So I was an E5 at this point, but I was looking at either getting promoted to E6 and becoming a squad leader, or, going over to either sniper section or doing something like that. And what really kind of resonated with me was canine. I had seen a couple on target. I'd worked with some other groups that had them and thought it was a really cool, really horrific job to unleash a psychopathic Malinois on some people that needed it. So I went through, after that deployment, I went to the selection, which was kind of just an in-house selection done. Anybody that had done their shooter time and wanted to go for one of the special teams could go to that. I went through and luckily enough, made it through that. So the dog training started. We went to it was a military and police canine course where you actually got your dog and then started working them and learned everything. And that took, a few months. And then after that was all at the unit, training at the unit. That sounded like that show, The Unit. That's really stupid. But at Regiment, we started doing a lot of like handler programs and finishing courses and stuff like that, working with the guys that you'd be working with and running your dogs through training and stuff. So
now, correct me if I'm wrong. You've told me in the past that 1st Battalion actually has their own kennel internal to the battalion itself as part of their
for sure. We kind of we occupied the like part-time vet office by force. We just kind of took it over one day and put our dogs in the back. And
are you the vet?
Yeah, it's like, cool. So Yeah, each battalion. I actually I saw that movie Dog finally with Channing Tatum. Funny enough, he actually came to First Bat and learned a lot, and that's where he actually
Yeah,
made. There
it's
was
a
a
good movie.
documentary that came
It's a
out
good
that he
movie.
put out. I think it was called War Dogs before that movie, and that was actually really good. So if you guys want to check it out, that's
War Dogs.
yeah, War Dogs is really good. The movie Dog
I'll
is
be checking
actually
that out.
yeah, where at the beginning he goes to the kennel, that's Second Bat's kennel, and that's a pretty good look at what what it was like to be a handler in that beginning part there.
I like like we were talking at before we went live and stuff. It's like it was one of those movies. Like they took the time to get the unit involved that they were portraying
For sure.
involved with it, so like it looked legit. It wasn't just like you can tell it's BS. Like when you look at these movies and they got the damn beret on and it looks like a fucking chef hat. Like
Chef hat,
just
yeah.
like, turn it off, click, bye,
Not doing
gone.
it.
Like I watched this on I went out on a work trip to Utah last year and I watched it on the plane and I was like, man, this is actually really fucking good. But
Yep.
like you got a lot of good people in it. Channing Tatum's in it. Bill Burr is one of my favorite comedians. Like the guy's
Yeah.
fucking hilarious, and
Yep.
he plays that the police cop sheriff.
Oh,
or
that's
the,
right,
the,
yeah.
the police sergeant or something like that. And he's just a real royal prick, and he's just like, hey, thanks for your
Mhm.
service. And he's just like,
Yep.
this is such a. Have you seen it, Alamo?
Which one was that?
Dog with Channing Tatum.
No, I haven't seen it.
Oh, dude, it's good. We have to.
I
Watch
gotta.
it.
I want to watch it though.
It
But
does
yeah.
a pretty good job at summing up why everybody hates Ranger Regiment because we all acted like that.
I wouldn't say
get it,
hate.
I get
It's you can. I mean, hate's such a strong word. Like maybe you're envious. You're just like you're either in it or you're not, and it's just like yeah, that's what it is. But I mean,
Yeah, I was one of those poor saps that got told there were no contracts. So
Yeah, and they run that game every single day, and it really sucks. Because then on the other side of it, you get a lot of guys that get a contract just because of who they know, and they don't pass. I mean, they're day one, they're getting kicked out of there. So it's a lot of it's kind of a political thing where a lot of times they go to the wrong guys. There's I'd like to think that I did good on that contract, but there's a ton of people that I hear that just got screwed over with it.
yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, totally, man, totally. So, when you were in regiment, so besides you said you wanted to get to work with dogs and stuff, and you ended up doing that and whatnot.
Mhm.
I mean, like that's got to be like I remember, dude. Like the first time there was one mission I went on when I was overseas. Like we're riding around patrolling at night, nods on. I'm like. I was a young, dumb kid at the time, so I'm going to preface this statement. But I was like, this is just like a fucking movie, man. This is badass.
Yeah.
Like, did you
Mhm.
have any type of cool guy moments, like when you're rappelling out of a helicopter with a dog attached to your harness?
For
You're just like, ah, yeah.
Yep. Especially a lot of the operations that we went on when we got into some pretty good firefights. Not only, I mean, we wore aviator nods pretty much the whole time. So you're looking through dual tubes on everything. And that was back in, somewhat early days. And a lot of the things that we did at night were just straight up ninja, just incredible to watch. Like, you get in this big, massive shootout. The other guys don't even really know where you are, that you're there. And then you're calling for fire at night. So you see through your nods, you see these lasers come out of the sky, out of like a cloud, and all of a sudden everything's blowing up. I mean, there were some pretty impressive times where, it turned into kind of Ranger TV. Everybody just stopped pulling security and was like, oh, that's really cool.
Two words, folks. War chubby.
Yeah,
Chubby.
for sure.
That's what it is.
Mhm.
Okay, so was there any other thing that you kind of set out that you wanted to accomplish that you did accomplish, didn't get the opportunity, or was it pretty much like that's I kind of wanted to focus just on the kennel stuff?
Yeah, I think because I had no idea that the canine was going to even be a thing, so that kind of led me to stay in a little bit longer. I don't know if I would say that I was planning to get out at that point, but I did 2 deployments as a canine handler, and at that point, I knew that it was a good move. I knew that my time in the Army was coming to an end, that I could stay in and be career, but that really didn't resonate with me too much. So at that point is when I decided to get out, and I felt like I'd accomplished all the goals that I had set out.
And I think you said on another piece of media that you were involved with, like at that time, you also started to have some medical issues, like with your back and some other stuff.
For sure, yeah. The standard, back and shoulders and knees and all that stuff. It wasn't like I was in a wheelchair, but I knew
knees and toes.
things were starting to go. Yeah, things were
Yeah.
starting to be a little loosey-goosey. I had a shoulder surgery on my right shoulder. I needed one on my left, so it turned into a pretty good point where I knew that I had accomplished a lot. I thought that, maybe on the outside in normal society, I had some things that I could do. I wasn't really sure what that was yet, but it seemed like a good time. And I don't regret when I got out. I miss a lot about it, but I also, I know that it was a good time for me.
So that's actually a great segue into the next part. So what did you have any type of, reintegration issues back going into, from being a guy who's, pretty much just a certifiable badass to going back into the civilian populace and everybody's just like, you got all these window licking people and you're just like,
for sure. Yeah. It's
the fuck.
Looking back on it now, it was a complete identity shattering. I mean, for basically my entire adult life up until that point, I had called myself an Army Ranger. So as soon as that wasn't true anymore, I really didn't know who to call myself, that what I was, who I was. I had a lot of problems with that. Like, I think
I'm Staff Sergeant Oswald. Oh, I'm Kyle. Hi. It's just kind of like, hey, okay, I just catch myself there for a minute.
It's weird in the civilian world. You can't just choke people that are being stupid or not doing their jobs. It's not really that cool.
I mean, are you physically, or are you like just looking at them going like this and like force choking their ass? I mean,
win in Rome, whatever you need to do.
Love it. So, okay. So, did you consider, like, was it even an option to maybe like say go guard or reserve, or were you just like, no, I think I'm just done? Or
I knew quite a few guys that got out, and what, like you guys know, as they don't really tell you, but you owe the Army 6 years.
Right.
Is it 6 or 8? It's 6, right?
I think it's 8.
Is it 8?
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure it's 8.
Because I remember when I signed my contract, when I enlisted, it was a 6+2. So I spent 6 years as a drilling reservist, and then I had 2 years where I had to go to like those muster drills for IRR, all that kind of shit. So I'm pretty sure it's like 8 years.
And I had seen quite a few guys, some of my really good friends, that got out and then were immediately recalled back into that. So I guess that was a small part of why I stayed in for the 8 years. But after, when I was looking at it, when I knew my inactive time was over too, I don't know that I thought too much about, National Guard or Reserve or anything like that. I felt like I had accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. I played the game at a very high level, and I liked the story that I had. So for me, it just wasn't really the move.
You just kind of make that clean, kind of walk away scot-free. Everything's clean. Yep. I don't have any regrets. I left it on the table, all that kind of shit.
And I think I knew it was never going to be the same. You can never go back to what you had. And I kind of knew that. I knew that as much as I loved Ranger Regiment and 1st Battalion, it wasn't going to be like that if I went, anywhere else. So that kind of helped me make a clean break and just call it good.
I got you. Okay. So after, going back into, getting out of the Army, left the Army, went into the civilian world and stuff. At one point you ended up having, I believe, you had your animal training business for a little while. You had
and I think that was the big plan when I got out. I wanted to go to a civilian dog training academy, one that focused more on like psychology and training theory and all that. So I did that, and I wanted to start a business. I worked for a small place in Austin. It was kind of called itself a training place, but it really just turned into boiled down to a dog daycare. So I worked there for just a little bit and realized I was like, there is nothing that they're doing here that I can't do by myself, basically. So at that point, started a business. I started going to people's houses or meeting at parks and kind of working through problem issues that they had with their dogs. Being a combat dog handler and working with bite dogs, I was comfortable with aggression. I had seen much more in-depth aggression than these people and actually trained that on purpose. So seeing people that had, inappropriately aggressive dogs, a lot of people say that they have an alpha dog at home, and I've never met one in the civilian world. I've come across. I
have an alpha dog. Your dog is 5 fucking ounces, lady. It's a Pomeranian. I can attach it to a broomstick and mop my floor.
It's like, oh, he's an alpha because he just sat for me for a treat. Like, he ain't an alpha. So I did that for a while. We were in Austin for about a year. Really weird city.
Austin,
really
Texas.
Weird. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So left there.
That's your wife.
Yeah. So my wife and I, when we got out, we had actually been dating for a little while, and then we got married right as I was getting out of the Army. Okay. So we moved back to Texas, where my family is from, where my dad retired out of. And it just wasn't a great fit. So her family lived right outside of Ocala, Florida,
Right.
and we decided to kind of shoot over that way. I knew there was a lot of canine stuff going on the East Coast, and it sounded like a good plan. I knew I hated Austin, and I didn't see a whole lot in Texas that was going to really, do much for me in that way. So that's what kind of led us to go East Coast again.
I have an uncle that has lived in Ocala pretty much ever since I've been alive, and like Ocala is just so awesome because
It is, yeah,
I mean, you kind of have some parts of it that kind of feel city, but it's also out in the
Mhm.
wilderness.
yeah,
A buddy of mine actually went up into the Ocala National Forest last year, a couple years ago actually, and we did a Jeep tour.
nice.
We were just doing trail rides out through the forest and stuff. I'm like, this is kind of what Florida is about.
Yeah,
Everyone says they
exactly,
hate
yep.
Florida. I'm like, this is fucking awesome. Like, you get out in the
Right.
forest and you hear all those damn like monkeys and primates that escaped from when they were filming the movie. And they're
Yeah.
like, and it's just like
Oh no, this is gonna go bad.
that.
Yeah.
No, that's a straight up thing. And there was actually a video that showed up on somebody's
What
reel
movie
a while
were they
back.
filming when that they escaped?
It was like a Tarzan movie or
Yeah,
like
I forget what it
something
was.
like way back in like the 40s or
like
50s.
the 40s, right?
Yeah, and they escaped off the set, and they just live out in the fucking forest. And
They were like, all right,
Just been
whatever.
breeding
Like-
ever since.
Yeah.
we got downs. We got down. This is our shit. This is our place.
Mhm.
But there was a video. There was a
Couple decades later,
video.
and that's Florida man.
Yes.
All the Florida man stories.
Yeah,
Yep.
pretty much. That's how it started. And then
That's
they-
probably
they
how
went
the
down-
Skunk Ape story started.
Yeah, and then then all the Florida man stores went down to Miami with all the freaking anacondas that they're letting loose out
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
Jackasses. But no, there was a crazy like reel that they had on Facebook or social media or some shit where you actually see like two clans of like primates, like monkeys or something, and they're fighting and they're like jumping straight off these branches in the woods, and it's just like, damn, like they're getting straight up there. Like it's one of these like crack a beer, let's watch
Yeah,
this
yeah.
shit, man. It's awesome. So,
Nope.
but Ocala's amazing, man. It's really cool. Like that's North Florida. That's a whole different feel up there.
It
man.
is,
It's
yeah,
awesome.
it really is. The nature coast.
Yeah, that's great. I love it up there, man. It's so chill. I fucking love it, man. It's awesome. I mean, it's worth the hour drive north of Tampa. So
Oh yeah, yeah.
all good stuff. Okay, so and then you did that for a little while, and then I was that before or after I met you when we worked in
That-
retail.
I had been doing the dog business for a little while, and I realized that I liked it, but I didn't love it. It wasn't anything like what I kind of thought it would be like, and
Okay.
it wasn't great. So that's when I started looking at other things, and I knew, shooting was something that I was always passionate about, and I had a decent amount of experience with it. So that led me to working at Shooters World, where we met.
Yeah.
Actually, and I was going to school at that time to get my bachelor's in psych, so it kind of worked out. That was a good place for me to work some, but also be able to use that GI Bill.
Yeah, free money. I remember it was so funny. There was a guy that was he was a Green Beret that was over with us when I was in Afghanistan. He's like, I'm working on my 4th degree because they're fucking paying me. Why
Yeah, yeah.
not? Like,
Right. Yeah, I didn't care at
Just
all
like-
about going to school. I cared about BAH.
Yes.
Getting that pay.
exactly right.
Yep.
So okay, so then I know you did the other thing for a little while, doing the tactical instructor thing with our buddy
Mhm.
Gino.
Yep.
So when did you decide? What made you kind of get into doing the nursing thing? Because that was, I mean, this is kind of a little bit of a circuitous path we're taking, like Army Ranger, dog
Right.
guy,
Yeah,
shooting
the
guy. We're gonna get into
duality
nursing.
of Kyle Oswald for sure.
I mean, you're like a dodecahedron. There's a bunch of sides here. Like, what side are we looking at? Like, this is all
Yeah.
cool. I fucking love it, man. Let's keep talking.
yeah,
It's all
yeah.
good.
So I had worked after Shooters World. I went to another range. I was working there and doing a lot more instructing. And I liked it, but I didn't love it.
Right.
I started looking at that point. My sister had been a nurse for a while, and she was in an emergency room. I'd never really considered nursing before that. Regiment actually sent me through an EMT program, so I had kind of gotten my feet wet with EMT intermediate, and I never worked as one, but I did do ride-alongs and took the registry and all that. So I kind of had it in the back of my mind. Hey, maybe get that turned back on. Start
Okay.
looking for paramedicine.
Out of curiosity, Kyle, because I know there's a few of the guys that actually got EMT certified in my platoon.
Mhm.
Were you able to take that certificate with you? Because I know I if I remember correctly, I think a couple of the guys were able to take that with them into the civilian world. Were you
For
able
sure,
to
yeah.
take
At the
yours?
end of the course, because it was a civilian course that we went to, it was kind of abbreviated. But at the end of it, you had the choice. There were a couple idiots that I went with that didn't take the national registry, so you could.
Gotcha.
And if you passed the registry, then yes, you had a civilian side certification. If you didn't, and it was basically just a workshop.
Nice. Okay.
So I kind of went back and forth. I looked at that. I talked with my sister. I ended up talking to a few guys that were in First Bet with me that had become nurses, and it turned into something that I looked at more and more. I mean, everybody knows that nurses make decent money, and that sounded great to me, especially after working for $9 an hour and getting guns pointed at my face and all that stuff. So the more I looked into it, the more I realized, oh yeah, no, dude. All these
listen, I'm not trying to stir up any shit, but man, we got some stories there, pal. Dude,
right.
it's kind of like, looking back at certain times of your life, you look back at the funny shit and the great times. Like, we had a good crew back there working in the back.
Yeah.
Like, we had good dudes that were around us. I mean, we had you, me, Gino, we had Cody and all the other guys. Like, it was awesome. Like, we all meshed, we all got along pretty well. It was fucking great.
Yeah, it wasn't
and
bad.
then, like, if it wasn't for just all the dumb office politics, it's like, it would have been a great job. It'd have been fun,
Politics ruins it again. Absolutely.
You mean to say politics is dumb? Say that shit ain't so.
Crazy, right? Crazy concept.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. So back to nursing. So you talked to your sister, talked to a couple of buddies that had from First Bet that had gotten into it. Yep. So when did that kind of start getting serious for you?
Well, the more I looked into it, the more I realized that, I thought that you needed a bachelor's, and I wasn't too hot on getting another bachelor's. I was like, I got a bachelor's in psych. It's worthless. It's literally a piece of paper that means nothing. So
it's like it's a certificate of completion.
It only matters if you don't have one. Like, they don't even care what it's in, basically. But so I found out that you could get an associate's in nursing. It's still an RN licensure, and you basically get paid the same. You can get the same jobs, all that stuff. For like nursing leadership and all that stupid stuff that I don't want to do anyways. Sure, it looks better to have a bachelor's and then a master's, but with realizing that an associate's could do it, that's when I really got pretty serious, and that ended up, happening. I think I knocked out an associate's in nursing in 14 months. So it was quick.
Damn.
Yeah, it was pretty fast.
Good stuff.
And then the very first thing I did as soon as I got my license was to get the fuck out of Florida. that happened immediately. And that's
Florida's been cool. It sucked a lot of drain. It's like, it's an emotional drain. And a lot of people have said that. I have a good friend of mine. They were like, I came to Florida and like my life just, a lot of bad shit happened in my life. So I left Florida. It's like, okay, everything's on the path of happy, hunky dory. So I get that,
Yeah, it's totally true. It's a weird, it's fun to visit, but living there is not for me.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, but especially like being up in, I would consider, like, once my daughter gets older and is out of high school, like, I wouldn't mind relocating. Like, Georgia seems like it's great. You got mountains, you got forests and stuff. Like,
exactly.
I got a good buddy of mine. We have a good buddy of ours that lives outside. He's in North Georgia, out near Hiawassee. Yeah,
I was in Hiawassee. That actually was right next to the ayahuasca place that I went to like 3 weeks ago. So that was.
We'll get to that. We're gonna tease that. We'll get to that. But so he freaking loves it up there. He lives right. He's a cop for the town up there, and he's like, everybody. It's kind of awesome. It's chill. He's like, and I was hoping to work for a big agency. You get all that the run and gun type stuff. He's like, no. I was like, it's cool just being like, hey, Fred.
Yep. So we knew. My wife had friends, longtime friends. They went to college together, grew up together, that lived in Atlanta. So I kind of used that as a staging point. I was like, all right, well, I know I can find hospitals around Atlanta. So basically what we did is we drove up just to stay at their house. And then I went and interviewed at a couple places. I knew 100% that I needed to be an ER nurse. There was no way I was going to be anything else, or I'd be in jail, basically. So I'm not bedside nurse. That's not me. Emergency is as close to paramedicine as I can get.
Okay, so let's picture this. Well, sir, maybe if you got off your ass and did some fucking PT, you wouldn't have diabetes and your feet wouldn't be falling the fuck off.
In the emergency room, it's more tolerant of that kind of behavior. It's not completely tolerant, but it's better.
I would imagine it would be a hard, like, there would be like a little bit of blurring of the lines between Nurse Kyle and Staff Sergeant Oswald. It's just like So
and it can be helpful too. I mean, honestly, it's nice to be able to put on whatever hat the situation needs, and I think that's something that a lot of veterans walk out with.
But I think what's also important too, it's having that sense of leadership and that stern, being stern and blunt with people. Some people need to hear that shit.
Mhm.
Like,
Yep.
okay, I'm not going to sugarcoat this shit. This is why you're in the situation you're in.
Right. Yeah.
What are
exactly.
you going to do about it?
Mhm.
You kind of
Yeah.
have to treat civilians kind of like, hey, brand new dumb privates. Hey,
Yeah, and
I've been down this road before. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Kind of like the
Well,
whole
didn't think
listen,
you could do that.
kids. Okay, listen, kids.
Right. So yeah, we headed up to Atlanta. The biggest thing for me, and my wife saw it too, is we got to a town where we thought, which we ended up getting a house there, and then we bought a house. That's where I live now. But as we were just kind of bouncing around town, we would stop at a couple places, got some food. I think we popped into Walmart for something random, and everybody said hi. It was the weirdest thing in the world. Like, I went from Florida where there's scowls and anger and everybody's so, aggressive towards each other.
It's no offense, Alamo. It's because all the damn New Yorkers come down here and fuck it up for everybody else.
Valid point.
Yeah, that was nice.
I mean, dude,
It was fine when we moved down here, but
listen, no, for sure.
Yeah.
But how many times you'd be like, oh, we just want to go down and check out Clearwater? I'm like, just keep going back north. Just go.
Nope.
Just
Yeah.
go. Don't come down here. Don't bring your nonsense. Don't bring your laws. Don't bring your bullshit mentalities. Just take your mouth breathing ass up back north. Thanks for coming out. Have a nice day. Yeah.
Right. Or
Did
just
you look-
be cool. Just be cool. Like,
Just not even that. Just
Right.
be a fucking decent human being.
that's
like,
all. That's literally it. That's all. That's all anybody
yes,
needs.
we're going to say yes or no, sir, because it's Southern hospitality. If you don't
Yeah.
like it,
Yep.
Right.
pound fucking sand, beat pop smoke, get the fuck out of here.
Right.
I had a lot of that bred out of me, after being down here for a while.
Yeah.
man.
And that,
I get it.
So, which is
So anyway,
for me a good thing.
Going to a couple places, people are being hospitable. They're being like, "Hi, how you doing?" All
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So
Yep.
that was
So
kind of a big deciding factor. And now,
it was.
were you
I
trying to
kinda
do
realized
like?
that we were in a good place.
Yeah.
So I took a job it was a regional hospital. It was kind of a smaller place, but they let me go straight into the ER, which is what I wanted. The drive out there was actually kind of nice. It wasn't in the middle of a big city. It's in Rome, Georgia, which I randomly ended up getting into the SWAT thing through working there. So that was kind of, something I didn't even realize existed, but that was a good staging point. Since then,
Okay.
I've bounced around. I've been at, I'm about to be at my fourth hospital. I actually started a different one here pretty shortly. And it's been an interesting ride going from hospital to hospital and kind of taking what I needed and working for what I was trying to get out of it.
Okay.
So
you're going to another hospital besides the standalone trauma center, or in addition
yes,
to?
no. I left that place and I'll be working at. It's a place that's a little bit closer to home, or a lot closer to home. It's not in the middle of Atlanta, so
Okay.
it'll be a little more relaxed, and it'll let me kind of do some things that I'm looking to do in
On
a
the side as
different
well.
direction. Yeah.
Sure, I got you. So you kind of mentioned a minute ago. So you were at the hospital and you got back into doing tactical stuff by being a SWAT medic.
Yes, and that's something that I do now. I work for 2 teams in the state. The first one, I started off close to where that hospital was, and then I
Like,
kinda
how did that even come to Progenesis? Like, you just like
Super
they found
weird.
out you were a ranger or something, or like
pretty much
explain that. That's curious.
So there was, a lot of police officers moonlight as security guards, or they do other things, for
Okay.
private businesses or whoever, or hospitals. And it turns out that the security guard that I had, just been friends with, had started talking to, it turned out he was the commander of a SWAT team. And he was like, as he, learned a little more about me and realized that I wasn't a moron, he was like,
Yeah.
do you have any
Nice.
interest in being a tactical medic for our SWAT team? And I was like, yeah, yes, I do. So I got into that. I started working for that county team, and then kind of launch padded off. And now I work with a state team as well.
Nice. So has that? So what's that been like? Has it been a good thing? Has there been any tribulations with that? What's
No,
been
it's
the
been
pros
awesome.
and cons of that? So
It's been really good. It's been very helpful in kind of shedding light on what a lot of law enforcement has to deal with on a daily basis. I mean, even the tactical teams, they've got so many microscopes on them, but people, generally the population hates law enforcement, and it's just terrible. I mean, these dudes are putting their dudes and dudettes putting their uniforms on, especially after something terrible happens from another agency, and they're still going to work and trying to protect, their city or their community, and that's been a really cool thing to be a part of. It's awesome. I don't know that I would become an officer, but it's been nice to be able to help those guys out in ways that.
So it's just kind of giving you like a peek into their lifestyle in that world and just newfound respect kind of thing. So
yep, exactly. And then there's been some cool schools that I've gone through. I went through a sniper course. I just went through this past year. I went through a state SWAT school, which was interesting. I was kind of expecting RIP and Ranger School again, and it wasn't like that. So it was good though. There was a lot of good shooting, but I was there trying to heckle the instructors and doing all kinds of stuff. And that apparently that wasn't the game in the law enforcement.
You're going to treat us like decent freaking people? Wow.
Yeah,
Whoa.
Really?
I don't know what to do with my hands.
Yeah,
So,
was,
and
interesting.
I remember you saying something about like you were kind of appreciative of your wife for kind of letting you dip back into this barrel of monkeys, so to speak.
For sure.
So,
yeah. She was very happy with the idea that I wasn't going to do anything dangerous again. And then I come home and tell her, hey, I just got an invite to be a tactical medic for a SWAT team. And she was like, really? Really? This is what you do? And she asked me, how did you even get it? How did you meet this guy? And I was like, I don't know.
How? Why?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yep, exactly.
I don't think I've ever in person met your wife, but I would just I just want to shake hands. Like, I'm so sorry you have to put up with this.
Yeah,
like
he's
a great dude. Like he's one of the best guys I know, but I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
You're expecting this, and it just went and just off into the fucking woods and stuff. So
right. Exactly.
All good.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, you said you've really enjoyed it. It's been just a really cool thing. Kind of give you that sense of camaraderie, that team, team atmosphere again, and whatnot. Yep. Not necessarily the same thing you had when you were with Ranger Bat, but like kind of on the same scope or on the same, kind of in that same realm.
In the same direction, for sure. Yeah. It's the two teams are very different, but there is a camaraderie in there, and it's a closed group. So it is definitely, it's a group where your deeds and actions actually mean something, and that is the bond that kind of, tightens everybody together.
Not
so
just
cool.
this, it's this. Yeah.
Right. Yep. And that's nice. And I don't think I'm very lucky that I kind of stumbled into that, because I think that's what a lot of veterans get out and miss and never get again. So,
yes,
which is huge. I mean, it's who we are.
Kyle, I gotta say, man, you're spot on with the fucking transitions and the questions here, man. So before we get into the ayahuasca thing, so we're gonna get into the last part. So, what would you say of all the stuff from the service? Obviously, we talked a lot about You've taken quite a bit of stuff from your military life and been able to segue that into civilian life with, just kind of mentality, your abilities, having the confidence to do that kind of stuff. What would you say are some of the things like that you miss from being in the service, like from being in Ranger Battalion, from being in the Army? What would be probably the top three things you miss the most?
Definitely the brotherhood. I mean, the brotherhood and Ranger Regiment. There's guys that. Right now, I know I could pick up the phone and they'd be at my house as quick as they could, or I'd be at their house as quick as I could. I mean, whatever that entailed. And that's not something that you find everywhere.
Yeah.
So Ranger Regiment's a little bit different, I think, in a lot of ways. But one of the things that I really liked about it is that it was very open to kind of, solving every problem atypically. So it wasn't like what I imagine the Marine Corps is like, where a lot of people say, it's this, go do this, accomplish the mission. It is much more of, okay, this is the target. What does everybody think? Somebody's going to decide what the plan is, but it's a lot more open. It's a lot more atypical in their approach to things. So I think everybody's kind of valued in that way.
Okay.
And then the expectation on everybody to bring their A game is amazing. I mean, I haven't seen that in the civilian world. I mean, the SWAT teams are a little bit different, but that's something that's different that I definitely miss. That
nice,
knowing that everybody is there, bringing the absolute best that they can bring, makes you in turn do the exact same thing. Even if you're having a shitty day, I mean, if you're among people like that, you're always going to push harder and dig deeper. Yeah. So that's something that I miss a lot, for sure.
Shit. So I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this one. I mean, would you have any qualms about going back and doing it all over again
No, not at all.
in a heartbeat?
100%. It made me who I am and so much more. For
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, I was actually out. I was when I was on a work trip out in Utah. I was talking to the client and the different family members, and they were like, we were talking about like, what would you go back and change if anything? I said honestly, like, with my life, where I am is because of what I've gone through and what I've been through and what I've experienced. Like, I like where I'm at right now. I don't think I would change anything. I said if I could do anything, I would just go back and experience the emotions of that moment or the experience of that. The joy, the sorrow, the sadness. Just the elation. I would go back, like, if I could go back and witness my daughter being born again, like just to live in that moment, that would be amazing. Like but I don't think I'd change anything.
No, I mean, there's always decisions I think we can look back on and say, yeah, I made a stupid choice there or whatever. But yeah, I agree. This entire journey has led me to where I am now. And thankfully, that wasn't taken from me. I wasn't one of the guys that unluckily didn't come back. I'd love to be able to spend a little bit more time with those dudes, knowing that they weren't going to be here anymore. But that's part of it. And that's where I think it took me a long time to realize, but once you can kind of wrap your head around things in a way that, I am here to live. I'm here to live for all those dudes that aren't here to live anymore. So maybe I don't need to fuck around and waste every moment that I have. Maybe I need to enjoy things a little bit more and be a better person if I can, and things like that. So I definitely agree.
For sure. So the last question from the questionnaire, and then we want to get into that last topic, talking about the retreat you went on. So if you had what, if any, wisdom or advice would you have for people that are looking to potentially join the service? I know now, mind you, this is obviously quite a bit different. All three of us are GWOT veterans. We were in the thick of the stuff, when things were happening after 9/11. It's obviously a very different ball of wax now, 20 years removed from the start of GWOT. So what kind of wisdom or advice would you have for somebody thinking about pursuing that, maybe as a career, maybe just to say, I want to try this out, figure it out, see if I like it, so on and so forth?
Absolutely. I think that, I haven't met a lot of people that have told me that they weren't in the military without having just a little bit of regret in their voice when they say that. I think that it's kind of the ultimate proving ground for a lot of us. And I think that joining is a way to be able to really, throw yourself into something and see what you're made of, see what you are. See if you're good enough to get to what you want to get or to do the things that you want to do. So I think absolutely, if you're thinking about joining the military, there's definitely something for you to do in it. And also, if you're going to join the military, be very clear about the goals that you have and the things that you want to accomplish. Don't lose sight of that. Don't get bogged down by being with the wrong, dudes. I heard somebody say once that you become the average of the people that you hang around. And that's 100% true. If you're hanging around a bunch of dudes that don't give a shit, then of course you're going to turn into, less than you could be. So that's another big one too, is choose your friends wisely. Obviously you'll die for anybody that's in your platoon. And that becomes a thing that it'll sound foreign and alien until you're actually in a group like that, but be smart about the people that you choose to spend time with too.
And I think what you just said also kind of does kind of really sums up the whole conversation we've had talking about your time at regiment. You become the average of the dudes around you. Like when you're around a bunch of type A, stand up fucking dudes that want to be there and want to be professionals and shit. It's like, that's probably the most apropos description I've heard of guys being in, something a little bit higher up than a standard line unit or something like that. So that's wow.
And I mean, really you could take any CAG operator or SEAL Team 6 operator, and you could give them the shittiest equipment in the world and they would still be fucking awesome. And there's a reason. It's not the equipment they have. It's not the money they make. It's not the, anything else. It's the motivation they have and their dedication to themselves to be the best version that they can for themselves and for their brothers and sisters. So I think that's a pretty big part of it. It's not, I was lucky enough to experience, and it'll be with me till the day I die for sure.
For sure, man. Nice. That sounds awesome. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to talk about. So the reason, we originally I talked to you a while back. I think it was sometime last year about, appearing on the show, which again, thank you so much for being on here, man.
Sure.
We appreciate it. I saw your post about, you made a post talking about how a lot of guys from the GWAT generation, like the Lost Boys or something like that,
Mhm.
and how a lot of guys kind of have some issues or this, that, and the other. And you were telling me that you went through a little bit of a retreat that was you found through, I think, somebody on like a Ranger Facebook, like, former Ranger page or something like that.
Yep, exactly.
So give me the rundown on that, man. I'm really fascinated to hear this story.
Oh yeah, for sure. So, we were talking about a little bit myself. I got out, had a lot of problems, did what most of us do and drank way too much, had a lot of issues, letting down my wife, not being the person that I should have been, not being the person that I used to be. Uh, I don't know if I ever considered that I had PTSD before. I knew that I had a lot of post-traumatic stress, but I didn't think that it was really affecting me to a point that was negative. That was all bullshit, by the way. But I had seen in this Facebook post by a guy that was in 1st Battalion, but I'd never met him. He had posted something about, he said, I think he described it as the Great Reset. And
yes, I believe that's the word you used.
And I was like, well, shit, sounds awesome. What is this all about? So I read his post. It was a pretty long post about how, plant-based medicine has been around for 15,000 years. We all know that drinking on your own and all these unhealthy behaviors that we engage with on top of our society's approach to mental health, they're all flawed. None of them work for most people. Some people might be, helped some, but for the most part, everybody's pretty much in the same spot that they were. You might be medicated and think that you're better, but you're really not at a core level. So the more I read his post, the more it kind of resonated with me that I still had a lot of work to do. I had a lot of things that I needed to fix and a lot of things that I really needed to bring to the light that I'd never have. I'd avoided them. I did what most of us do, and I stuffed everything deep down and locked it away and thought that, that's cool. I've got these traumatic experiences that I've been through. I've got all these terrible things that I did and saw, and that makes me who I am. So in a way, I'm glad to have them, as weird as that is. His post and the more I read about ayahuasca kind of resonated the idea that, yes, you can be made of, the memories and the experiences that you went through, but you don't have to give them so much power over yourself. What I realized kind of the more I looked into it is that I basically am was dragging an anchor around with me all the time. And I think that, I look across a table at a lot of other veterans and people are doing the same thing. Yes, they're going through the motions of living life. Yeah, they're saying that they're happy and, they might even talk trash about being glad that they're out of the military, but they never really got right when they got out. Obviously we know that veteran suicide is a huge thing that is just, every time you read one of those posts of a guy that just killed himself, they seem like the best dude in the world, the guy that had everything figured out, the guy that was doing great on the civilian world. And then boom, they killed themselves.
No pre-existing signs, no hints, nothing like that. Yeah,
exactly. So there was a Ranger that just committed suicide a little while ago. I didn't know him personally, but everybody called him Cap. He lost his leg in combat, got a prosthetic, went back through RASP, deployed again as a Ranger. I mean, just phenomenal dude. Got out, wrote a motivational book, and everybody considered him to be the best of us. Well, he ended up killing himself again with no warning, with no seemingly issues that were going on. Left behind, I believe it was 2 children and his wife. I mean, just terrible. So that was kind of the last straw that made me give up the bullshit that I had been telling myself and finally, look towards a non-traditional way of healing. So I did. I ended up, the guy that shared the post, I talked with him a lot more. He was, so awesome at being just completely open, just sharing everything that he had gone through, all of the experience, everything that he was doing beforehand that had been ruining his life or making him, ruin relationships and just be a terrible person, things that I was doing. The more I read, the more I realized that I needed to make this happen no matter what went down. I knew that a lot of people travel to Peru or some of the other South American places or Central American places to do ayahuasca ceremonies. But I was pretty surprised. He has a place that he's gone through in Texas a few times. And then I found a place that was actually really close. It's near Hiawassee. or right outside of Helen, Georgia, is the place that I went. So literally, I signed up for it. I paid what is a very, very small amount to go do this. It turned into a lot of pre-work, a lot more than I had expected, a lot more, journaling and talking with a psychologist and doing all these things to kind of evaluate, what I needed to fix. And I had all these, they say, oh, we want you to write down a bunch of intentions, a bunch of things that you want to, change or fix about yourself, or things that you want help with. And I had written down all kinds of things about, like, being pissed off all the time, being depressed intermittently, carrying around all these traumatic things with me. So I read them off during a one-on-one. It was just a video conference with this psychologist. And she was like, yeah, all that sounds great, but why don't you love yourself? And I was like, who are you? And who do you work for? You just pick that up from me talking for 30 seconds. But
damn it, how did you know?
Right. And I never really thought about it, but I can't say that I love myself. I mean, I work this skin suit the way that I need to get things done. But, for the question to be asked why I don't love myself, that really kind of hit home. So that became my goal going into this ceremony. I realized that kind of everything stemmed from that, from me having all this anger and rage and depression and irritability and, inferiority, survivor's guilt. I mean, you name it. All these things that I'm carrying around inside of me are preventing me from actually being the person that I should be, the person that I could have been. So we get to the retreat. They had talked about, you need to meditate. You need to be meditating. That's a way, they said it a few times that ayahuasca is going to change your perspective, and it's going to open a door that you didn't know was there, but it's still going to be up to you to open the door fully and walk through it. So, that sounded great, but I couldn't really visualize that. I couldn't imagine, what that would even be like. To say, oh, it's going to change your perspective. That sounds like, if you were to tell somebody about swimming and they'd never done, never swam anywhere. Like, sure, it sounds great, but I can't even imagine what that's actually like. So we get there, we do a few meditations during the day. They push like clean eating and things like that. So I had been, for the first time in my life, I'd been vegan for a week starting or before the actual start date. And, they talk about all the, plants and animals have spirits and all that stuff. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I'm paying for this, so I'm going to give it my all, but I don't know if it really works in my brain. I am a meat eater, and, I don't know how much I bought into it. So
I want to walk around clubbing animals in a loincloth,
and absorb the life force. Yeah, that's what, like Darth Vader. That's what I want to do.
Love it. Keep going.
Since everybody had told me, and my buddy was like, dude, just throw yourself into it. Try to be open. You've never been open in your life. I know. You're just like I was. You're like everybody else. You never let your guard down. But try to do it. Just try to get through it and get yourself to a place where you're actually open. So I was like, all right, man. So I get there after the meditations and kind of meeting everybody. It was a group of about 25 of us. And, they're saying over and over that this is not a judgmental place, that everybody here loves you, that, nobody here is going to say anything or there's going to be no negativity throughout the entire ceremony, but it's still weird. It's still,
especially for a guy that was especially for a guy like yourself that was in a special ops type unit, and then you go and and I don't mean to marginalize these folks, but it's a very like beatnik hippie kind of mentality. You're just like, okay, somebody just dropped me off in the 60s.
Right.
Okay.
And regimen and everything else just being a man in American society is the opposite. It's stuff everything down. Don't talk about your problems, much less try to work through them. It's, you show up, you work, you get things done, and then you go home and you drink and watch TV. That's what we're supposed to do for our mental health. So
right.
This was the opposite, and it was
Preach, brother.
Yeah,
preach, man.
Dude, and I mean, I did all of those things. I did everything exactly wrong, the way that I had been taught, the way that I'd seen, other people go through it. So we get to ceremony one. It was going to be two ceremonies. one each night. And then we showed up Friday. So it was Friday and Saturday. You did a ceremony each night. And then you went that Sunday. You just kind of talked over some things and then left. So the Friday we do this, I think they called it a fire ritual, which everybody wrote down things about yourself that you wanted to get rid of, and you threw it in a fire. And it was cool. It wasn't a bad thing. It wasn't a bad experience, but it's still, my guard was definitely up looking back. So we get inside, they bring out the ayahuasca. It's in a little shot glass. And basically ayahuasca and it's insane that they even figured this out in a, third world country. There's a root that is the active ingredient that is, DMT is basically the active ingredient. So there's a root, but if you know anything about DMT, which is the neurochemical that supposedly dumps in your brain the moment you die, it's where everybody sees the light at the end of the tunnel and all that stuff. So DMT is a very, very, very quick acting drug. It doesn't last long. Well, if you add an MAOI inhibitor to it, it lasts a long time because that prevents your brain from actually absorbing it in the normal manner. So somehow they figured out a vine and a plant, you mix those together and you get ayahuasca, which becomes a 4 to 6 hour psychedelic trip, for lack of another term. And I'd never done psychedelics before. I'd never, I'd always heard and seen things on TV like, what is that movie, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, where Johnny Depp's just completely tripping balls the entire time. So
sure. They're turning green. What's going on there?
So that was kind of, from the outside looking in, that was what I kind of expected. I had heard that there's a lot of new research going into mushrooms, to psilocybin, which is the active ingredient, MDMA, which is ecstasy, and then LSD is making a comeback. So there's all these scientific groups that are running trials, especially with psilocybin, that are gaining popularity. But I really had no experience.
I think I remember reading something. They were actually kind of trying that with some guys at like the VA and stuff that had a lot of like anxiety, post-traumatic stress. They were kind of resorting because, dude, how many times, and not to interrupt your story real quick, but how many times have you seen guys come out of the VA and it's like, holy shit, there's a guy smuggling a fucking case of maracas in his pocket over here, and you realize he's got goddamn fucking meds. Like he just opened a small pharmacy. Like he's gonna be like, you need this? I got this. You got watches. I got watches. I got pain pills. I got shit for diarrhea. Like, damn.
Yeah. And you take
for
this
my
one
heart
to help your depression. So now you got all these side effects. So take these other 6. Well, those have side effects. So it turns into just such a shitty mess. Yeah. And in the end, you don't really get any better. You start to, you tell yourself you're better. You talk through some things with a therapist, and sure, you might be able to compartmentalize a little bit better, but being somebody that went through it, I can tell you I was no better. Even though I thought I was no better. I had not cleansed at all my mental health, and I had not, fixed anything. I had not changed my perspective in any way at all. So that brings us to night 1. I take the first shot of ayahuasca. It takes a while to kick in. It was about an hour before I really felt anything. I still was really, really focused and aware of what was going on in the room. And no matter how much ayahuasca you take, you're not going to be a zombie. You're not going to forget yourself. You're not going to, go anywhere. But if you get ahead of yourself, if you won't fully commit or fully let go, it's not going to do much. And that's kind of what night 1, for the most part, was for me. I was worried about everybody else in the room, even though they tell you not to. They tell you don't, just completely ignore, especially if you're in healthcare or you're that, patriot type. You hear somebody crying, you want to help. You hear somebody, screaming, you want to help. So all that kind of pulled me out of my own experience looking back. What I did have was I had that kind of typical vision of walking through a tunnel and I couldn't get to the end of it, which for me, that completely makes sense. I've been kind of checking the boxes and trying to get, the next goal accomplished over and over, trying to become happy, and it never worked. So that's kind of what I took out of it. But night 1 overall was summarized by me not really being able to fully let go. Like, I think it was in Fight Club when Brad Pitt kept saying, he was like, "You just let go." Like it's so much harder to do than it actually is. So we get to morning 2, and we're talking about our experiences, and the shaman that's there had no idea who was there for what. she wasn't in on any of the like psychologist, meetings or any of that. So she kind of just went with whatever came out. And, she asked if I had purged, which is basically just you throw up, or some people have diarrhea, or just, some people scream the entire time. I mean, it sounds incredibly crazy, but the weirdest part is that it doesn't seem crazy while you're doing it. It actually seems very cathartic. But they asked if I purged, and they were like, well, you still seem like your guard's up. Did you cry? And I was like, I've never cried as an adult at all. And they were like, what are you talking about? And I was like, yeah, I've never cried. That's normal. Guys don't cry. And she was like, this is exactly what's wrong with our society. Like you need to cry. And I was like, yeah, that's bullshit. I don't need to cry. And so
I'm just going to not accept delivery of that message package that you got going on there.
Yeah.
Recall to sender. Good.
Yeah. So,
Thanks.
Yeah.
I was polite about it, but I nothing had really changed. I felt great that morning. Like I felt like I had done a little bit of work. Like I had seen a little bit, and I knew I felt a little bit better, but I didn't have this massive breakthrough. I didn't have this, great reset that had been talked about and all that. So we go throughout the day. They taught us some different meditation techniques, which, side note, meditation prior to had never done anything for me. It basically was me closing my eyes and the same shit, the same negative messages mixed into whatever thought I was trying to have. It was the same. So during the day on day 2, meditation actually started to work. I started to be able to kind of quiet my brain and focus on things and relax my body. And I was like, holy shit, this is actually what they're talking about. This is letting go. Like this is, it's not about blocking every memory that you have or every negative urge or, whatever. It's just about being able to quiet those things for a while and focus on something. And I was like, okay, cool. So I felt pretty good about being able to make a little bit more happen on night 2. So we get to the ceremony. I take the first shot, and the first night it was like an hour before I felt anything. After like 15 or 20 minutes, I started seeing these crazy designs. And I was like, oh shit, we're here. This is going to happen. So everything is kind of how I think people describe mushrooms, where you start seeing all these intricate designs and things are moving and breathing, and it's really beautiful. And I was like, yeah, this is awesome. Cool. But I knew that there was a lot more to come. And I knew that, we were going to lose cabin pressure at a certain time tonight. I just wasn't sure. I wasn't sure when it was going to be. So they come around after an hour when I had started to see eyes, and it was weird. They were like, and there's so much that's just indescribable, but one of the things that kept happening is I could see eyes peering at me through like holes or cracks, almost like in a fence or something like that. And it was weird, but I wasn't nervous about it. It was just kind of there. I just accepted it and didn't know what it meant at that point. But shot 2 comes around, and you don't have to take it, but I was like, yep, we're going to take shot 2. So I take that. Maybe 15 minutes after that is when everything just went completely nuts. I realized that all the eyes, which now instead of just being, 1 or 2 pairs, was completely around me. I realized that this was the mother ayahuasca that everybody talks about, that most people that do have a big breakthrough with ayahuasca, a lot of celebrities are talking about it. Joe Rogan and all these people are talking about it now. That's the female figure that most of these people see. And I was like, holy shit, that's her. And it was such a weird, almost acknowledgement that she was always there, that wasn't anything new. I could just see her for the first time. So it was super weird. And I know that most of the stuff that I'm about to say is going to make me sound like some crazy hippie. I'm not burning sage at my house. I'm not, doing any of that weird stuff, but I 100%.
Can I just say something real quick? Like, I'm sorry, but like, patchouli fucking stinks. Okay. I'm going to say that right now. The scent patchouli, like good God, I smell it. I'm like, ugh, it just pisses me off, and I gotta walk away. I'm like, no.
Nope.
But it's interesting though, because like there's a store in the mall here in Brandon that like it's kind of like that whole like the naturalism, like the gemstones, and like all that kind of stuff. And it's like I've never been around that kind of stuff, and I always kind of thought it was like the same thing. It's like hippie type shit, but like there's a little bit of science to it. But like I'm fine until I smell the patchouli. I'm like, okay, we can go. I caught a whiff of patchouli. I'm out.
Right.
Please
so everything from that point is when I think it stopped being just kind of a cool trip, and it turned straight up spiritual and healing from that point. So there was a point, she was pulling me in all these different directions. I was seeing all these different things. There's things that I'm still realizing and kind of unpacking. And it's been like 3 weeks since I've been there, but a lot of it turned into all these terrible memories that I have, all these images that have been burned in my brain, all these things that I've been holding on to with all this power over me, all this negative thought, sadness, depression, anger, all these things. They manifested in front of me, and she was literally showing me all of these different things, almost like it was some kind of horror show. And It was weird. I wasn't scared, but I saw them and was like, yeah, this isn't good. I don't like any of this. So a voice popped in my head and she was like, yeah, this is you. This is who you've let become you. And I was like, yep, that makes sense. Tell me more. And she was like, your entire soul is full of all of these things. And that's why you can't experience love. That's why you don't love yourself. You for damn sure can't love anybody else. That's why you're never happy. You might tell yourself you are, and you do cool stuff. And, you know, you say, oh, that was awesome. But you don't feel anything. None of the emotions are actually getting through to you because you're full of all this black. So everything that had been kind of laid out in front of me, I completely agreed with. And I was like, yeah, I see that. I see that all of these terrible things have become me, and I let it happen. I made it happen. So there was about an hour of being confronted by all that stuff, but in more of a loving manner. It wasn't like a, you know, I've heard of people doing iboga, if you've ever heard of that, where they call ayahuasca is the loving mother or the loving grandmother, and iboga is supposed to be the angry grandfather. So it's a completely different trip. It's very, very aggressive and angry. Well, ayahuasca is much more loving and constructive and presents a roadmap for all the shit that you're doing wrong that you need to fix. And you'll see results in that first thing. So after all this is presented and I start to actually realize that that was me, not just terrible things that were being shown to me, but that was actually me, she grabs me and she says, cool, so let's get this out. So I get thrown over onto my side, which sounds insane to even talk about me not having control of my body, but I'm thrown over because she literally throws me, puts me on my side, and says, cool, let's get it out. So at that point, I had some nausea kind of coming up. And as the nausea come up, my visions got really strong. But at that point, nausea goes through the roof. I grab the bucket that they set aside for me and I start throwing up. As I'm throwing up.
That's the purge, right?
Yes. And that's the purge that everybody talks about. It's what you want, which feels weird to even say. But it's the most cathartic, the most incredibly positive purge. And it's not even a physical, I mean, it is partly physical, but it's such a spiritual purge that happens that it's just absolutely amazing. So I grab the bucket as I'm tripping balls at this point. So as I see this bucket, there's like, it almost looked like, you know, the Matrix where there's all the little symbols that are going down. Well, that was, all of them were going down in the bucket and I could see all these designs off to my side. But as I start throwing up, it was like there was like an oil that was coming out of me. It was completely jet black. Everything that was coming out had this oil, but it also had all these images and memories that I had kept inside me that were all coming out into the bucket. Like I was getting rid of them. So I throw up for probably 10 minutes. It had gotten to the point where, and it sounds terrible. It wasn't. It was amazing. So as I'm throwing up, it progresses to the point where I'm throwing up and then yelling as I'm throwing up into this bucket. But it felt amazing. It was the most amazing feeling that had ever come over me, where I was getting rid of all of this bullshit that had become me, that was driving me to do all these terrible things and to feel all these terrible ways and all that. So we get done with that. I kind of throw myself back on my back. You wipe your face and everything. And the volunteers there were awesome. So they immediately switch out your bucket and they're not going to interfere with you. They don't fuck with your trip, but they're there for you. Like if you have to, like the diarrhea thing is everybody's, you know, worst nightmare. They're like, oh my God, I'm going to shit my pants. It's not like that. You don't lose control and you're not going to like just immediately diarrhea all over yourself. So like if you have to go, you know, you walk with them, you can walk, you're a little bit unsteady, but you're fine. So, and when you open your eyes, it all pretty much stops generally, except for like, when I was puking in the bucket, at that point, I was so far past, you know, having cabin pressure that it was all it was all happening. But at any point I could have gotten up and walked or said something or acknowledged whatever. So I'm back on my back and my eyes had started leaking. It was such a foreign like experience for me because it had never happened other than like tear gas. So my eyes are leaking, but I'm not crying. And I was like, that's pretty weird. And she's in my face again. I could see her right in front of me. And she's like, okay, it's time to cry. And immediately a wave of just this incredible cathartic sadness just set in. And I started bawling. I started off like kind of sobbing and I was weird. And again,
Kyle, did you ugly cry, bro?
Oh, it turned into ugly. Yeah, absolutely. Like started off with some little crying, and then it progressed to like actually crying, and then it turned into just hysterically bawling my eyes out. And
I don't know why, but for some reason, it just made me think about Pat when we worked together. Pat's like that kind of shit.
It didn't get that bad, but it was where I was absolutely having the most emotional experience of my life. And as I was crying, I kept seeing more of this black coming out of me. Once when I was sobbing hysterically, I stopped and I could see this ball of energy kind of coming out of my chest. And she was, still there with me. She was like, do you see what that is? And I was like, I don't know. There's like all this energy coming out. And she was like, yeah, that's your spirit. That's your soul. That is what you have been hiding this entire time that has made you wildly unhappy. That is finally something that you can see the world with. And I was like, awesome. This feels amazing. I've never felt like this in my entire life. I don't even know where this can go from now, but I know I am not the person that I used to be when I walked through this place and when I had this second night. From there, I had this just overcoming joy and contentment with life. I realized that I am absolutely an amazing person. I love a lot of the things that I had done. At that point, I knew that I loved myself, which was such a weird feeling. I knew that by loving myself, I could love other people. I immediately thought of my wife and how amazing she was and realized I was overjoyed with the idea that I could actually be the person that she should have had this entire time. And that kind of excited me. But everything was just waves of happiness, waves of complete contentment. I no longer felt that conscience in you that turns into all that negative thought and all those things. It's gone. It's been gone this entire time. I don't feel it anymore. I literally don't have, I have a voice in my head that says, don't do that or you'll die, or, hey, that's a dumb move. But I don't have this nagging energy that's just leeching the life out of me anymore.
So quick sidebar question. So when you went to this by yourself, your wife didn't go, obviously.
Correct. Yeah.
When you saw her again for the first time, did she immediately notice a difference? Was it gradual?
Actually, I was wondering that same thing. Yeah.
And that was weird. As I was driving home, it was about 2.5 hours, maybe. I knew that it was going to be emotional, but I didn't really know exactly what was going to happen. So I get home, I walk in the door, she's there. She was on the couch. She stands up and comes and I start hugging her, and I didn't really say anything. And I guess it kind of threw her off. She didn't really know which way to play it and didn't know what to say. So she just held me back. And after maybe a minute, I kind of pulled back and looked at her face and I said, it's all gone. It's all gone. And I started crying again. And I bawled my freaking eyes out while holding her. And she, of course, immediately started crying. And it was something that I never imagined I'd even be capable of, feeling that kind of emotion in front of someone. I love her more than anything, but I still had never let her in. I had never dropped every wall that I had. And I don't think that most people do, but at that moment I really did. And it again was just completely cathartic. And I think that she realized and was just so happy that I had the experience that I was hoping that I could have. And since then it's been amazing. I feel like we're on a completely different level.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Literally, there is the things that kind of push people away from doing this. I know the purging is huge. Nobody wants to puke in a room full of strangers. And going into it, I was not cool with that.
I can only imagine, like, there must have been so much conflict. You're like, okay, this is like very ancient medicine and science and all this stuff, and here I am, a nurse. I'm really involved in all the contemporary types of health and
Sure.
whatnot. So there must have been a lot of a little bit of conflict in those
Oh
regards.
yeah. Like, especially when I was being pushed into different positions, like my brain was like, cool, muscle spasms. But I knew on a deeper level that was not muscle spasms at all. Like, I knew this chick, Mother Ayahuasca, who apparently, I mean, is me, but is also not me, is the best part of me, is throwing me into positions on purpose to do different things in each position. Like there was a lot that I had to just leave at the door after things started kicking in, and I had to just give into it. And it thankfully was exactly reading all the stories about it and hearing all these success stories that have come out of it, where people said that it was a complete perspective change. Again, that didn't have meaning until I walked out of there and I was like, holy shit, this is a different world. Like I have never seen anything before now. I was a completely different person. And I, thankfully, to this day, I mean, it's been 3 weeks later, it's not any less strong. I don't have any, any type of perspective that's shifted back to where it was. I can see and bring up all those, traumatic emotions or memories, not even emotions, but memories that I've had, things that I've gone through, things that have happened, or, things that I was holding on to, and they're still there, but they don't have any weight. They literally don't affect me the way that they used to. I mean, I'm not chanting and burning sage in my house. I'm not.
You're not walking around in like man jammies sing kumbaya.
Right? Yeah. I'm definitely still me.
Yeah.
But the concept of being the me that I should have been, or that I was before all of these crazy traumatic things, that's definitely true. And I think the perspective change it's impossible to imagine before it actually happens to you. I mean, you can hear people that go through it, and hopefully some people are going to hear me talk about this. And
right.
What I would say is absolutely, without question, everybody who was there got something out of it. There were a couple people that didn't have like huge breakthroughs. I don't think they could really let their guard down completely, which is fine. I know that they're already planning on going back. For the rest of us, everybody came out of there with a massive change in perspective.
So let me ask you this question. So in your opinion, I know I'm throwing a bit of a curveball here, so bear with me. Do you think if you hadn't heard about this from somebody that was like, not that you knew, but like a ranger buddy, do you think you would have still gone through with this?
Probably not.
And the reason I asked that, so I just kind of I asked that question for this purpose. So there is a good friend of mine. We've known each other since middle school. She has a friend of hers who's now a mutual friend of mine, and he is he was a Navy SEAL. He had served on the teams for a while, kind of around the same time that we all served, and he was kind of the same kind of mindset. It's like, guys don't talk about shit, guys don't go to therapy, push the shit, bury down, fucking drink. So, and he went home and visited a friend of his who is also a former teammate who is up in New Hampshire, and he was talking about, they want me to go to therapy and all that stuff, and he's like, dude, get your head out of your ass. I go to therapy. Yeah. And I find it very fascinating, this whole concept of like, especially the stigma still exists where guys don't talk about shit. But it just seems like, especially for our, the GWAT generation, veterans in general, in a broader scope, it's like, it seems like it takes another veteran or another person that served with him, their unit, they're going, dude, like, I do this same exact thing, and look at me. And this guy was just like looking at his friend who's like, yeah, I go to therapy too. And he's just like, whoa, like this giant fucking wall just went and just like somebody knocked over the emotional Berlin Wall, and it was just like, hey, what's going on, man?
Yeah, at least it starts you on a path that you wouldn't have gotten on yourself. I think that's what happened with me. Yeah. And I had seen some posts about guys that were having trouble, and I'd opened up to the point where I was at least understanding that I did have some issues that I was still burying deep inside, but I don't know how much further I would have gone on that. Like, I had talked to a therapist a couple times. I told him the same bullshit that I was telling myself, and I didn't get anywhere, really. I mean, not through no fault of him, but if my buddy didn't go through it and didn't actually open up as much as he did, I don't know if I would have gone down the road as far as I did. I mean, at this point, I'm 100% going to go back. There's a lot of stuff that it showed me that I have to work on. I mean, that the door is now open and I'm trying to walk through it. I do still meditate every day. That is something that it never had any value at all before. I don't think I knew how to even do it. But now that I'm doing it, there's absolutely value to being able to meditate effectively. 100%
It's become like this just crucial part of who you are now.
Yes. If there's one thing that you take out of an ayahuasca or I'm sure other psychedelic experiences, it's that the meditation is key. It really is. And it's not some, weird meditating where you're burning incense and doing all that stuff, but it's just taking 10 minutes out of your day. I mean, if it works in the morning or if at night it's helpful to you, 10 minutes, close your eyes, focus on yourself, relax yourself, figure out what those voices in your head that are bubbling up are saying, sort through that, and then move on. And that's how I've been doing it. And I think that it's really been helpful.
Wow.
Nice.
That is amazing. I had no idea like we were going to talk about that.
Dude,
that
and
long.
Mac, I mean, you knew me. You knew the kind of person I was. I guarantee you didn't think that I would ever even remotely talk like this or be.
So for sure. But like I said, dude, the emotional dodecahedron, like you just got so many sides. But dude, I remember when I first met you, we were talking because I had noticed like your sleeve, your tattoos and stuff. You're like, yeah, because you were explaining the story about how you were praying to Odin about getting in a damn gunfight, and then you sure shit happens. Like,
yeah.
I'm an Odinist. All right.
My first gunfight. Absolutely.
Badass. Let's do this. And it's all beautiful artwork and stuff on your arm and shit. But now to hear this, it's like, it's just such, it's amazing. It's kind of like, it's the amazing thing about it is just seeing people and how they've grown and matured and just changed, and not necessarily good or bad way, but just different. Like, I can relate it to like my dad. I've always known my dad as my dad. But then to get to see him get to be a grandparent, like it just watching that change, and it's not anything good. It's just so different, it's just like, and like watching my brothers become uncles to my daughter. It's just like, wow, like that's and like you couldn't imagine that before, but now you're just like, now you're just looking at it like, of course that's your uncle. Why wouldn't he be? And it's just like just your regular everyday part of fucking life, man. It's just
you'll
insane.
never go back to where that's not. Yes, it's a weird. Transition,
absolutely. Well, Kyle, man, listen, that was amazing. Like, I'm so glad you shared it with us. Thank you so much.
Very interesting.
That was This is like one of my new top 3 favorite shows that we've done.
Yeah.
But listen,
I've had fun. It's been good.
We're going to put you backstage for just a few minutes. We're going to close out the show, and then we'll catch you once we wrap up and stuff. So if you just want to hang out for just a few minutes, we're going to start wrapping this up and shit. We will be right back. But thank you so much, Kyle.
All right, man.
Appreciate you coming on, and we'll talk to you in a bit. Awesome. So, all right. Wow. I didn't think you were going to go into that much detail. That was fucking awesome. Holy shit. What a story, man. Like, that was insane.
You want to go on a retreat?
So you know what? It's funny. Funny enough, I'll talk to you about it afterwards. But there's a friend of mine who she's actually doing this thing. She actually bought a ranch up in Webster, and she's doing like this horse thing, like Peaceful Pastures or what it is. And I just saw her the thing pop up. She sent out a notification, but it's like it's free to veterans. So I've actually got like 2 tickets, so I'm gonna see when it is and stuff. But dude, dude, that was awesome. That interview was fucking amazing. So anyway, like we said, earlier, we like to talk about cool stuff, and we like to do interviews, and that was probably one of the coolest ones we've done. So yeah, but if you're new to the show, if you don't know how we got started, Alamo and I used to have a friend of ours named John who worked with us when we worked in a retail business. John was a great dude. He was like one of the funniest fuckers you'd know. Like just made work so much fun. Like we did stuff like we would probably get in trouble with nowadays. Like HR would hate the 3 of us, right?
Yeah.
So we kind of fell out of like, oh God. just so much fun. But anyway, we kind of fell out of touch with John, and unfortunately, John had some demons, and he decided to go down a bad path, and ended up solving a temporary problem with a permanent solution. So, Alamo and I did an event for his wife's nonprofit Flipside Mentorship, and then afterward, Alamo kind of was like itching. He's like, "Dude, we got to do something together. Let's work together. This is awesome. I love hanging out with you. Oh my god."
Yeah.
Well, then we found out about John, and we kind of like that was kind of like the catalyst. It was like the aha moment, and it was just like, yeah, we got to do this. So, we kind of started this whole journey together of doing the podcast, and as part of that journey, we were like, what can we do to help people stay motivated when things get rough mentally and all that kind of stuff. So we came up with the Battle Bros Code, and it's easy to remember. You just have to remember the letters BROS. Okay. If you can remember those four, man, you're good to go. You're going to be all right. So the first one, be tenacious. Just like with Kyle's amazing story about how he went and started off as a ranger. Then he became a dog trainer, and he was a dog handler, and all the cool stuff he did. And then especially with this journey of
Definitely no timidity there.
No, not at all. Like, tenacious is definitely a word that I would use to describe Kyle. Like, not trying to kiss his ass or fluff him up or anything, that kind of stuff. But I mean, you just heard that story. That was amazing. Go out and whatever you do it to the fullest. If you set your mind on something, go fucking do it. Absolutely. So whatever you decide to do, be tenacious. Whether it's being a parent, being a soldier, being a nurse, being a dog handler, whatever it is, like, go do it and do it to the utmost of your abilities. Go get yourself into whatever you want to get into and do it to the fullest. R, refuse to surrender. There are lots of times where things get sideways and twisted. Like he said, there were times where, he's going to be working at like his fourth hospital now, where, you just got to find that fit where it's good to go. Having businesses that were just like, this isn't really what I want to do. I like it. I don't love it. I'm not going to quit here. I'm going to keep going and pushing towards that OBJ. Do it. Whatever it's got to take. Refuse to surrender. Don't let things get you twisted. All right. O, obliterate your obstacles. Whatever happens. Like, here's, like you said with the ceremony, he took all this, pent up emotional stuff and just obliterated that emotional obstacle and just had so much growth of it. And like, I'm going to go back and watch this whole thing again because of the fact that, like, when you're in the moment interviewing, it's cool, you're following along and stuff, but you can't really take in a lot of the stuff. So I'm definitely going to be like watching this like sometime over the weekend, like sitting in my lawn chair, just chilling, just paying attention to this on my headset. It's going to be awesome. So no matter what happens, whatever obstacles happen in your way, sometimes you have a some type of barrier. You might have to go 100 yards out into the wood line, go over some type of terrain feature, come back on, you got to cross the linear danger area, do the scroll to the road or whatever you got to do. Get around that stuff. Sometimes you got to freaking, you go to a ceremony and you open yourself up and you obliterate that emotional obstacle. Sometimes you have a physical obstacle. Hey, guess what? C4 Bangalores, breach that shit. Sometimes you back a striker into it. Whatever it takes, who cares? It's all good. Okay. The most important and paramount pillar of the Battle Bros Code is the last one, S. Seek out help in a time of need. Unfortunately, with our friend John, we fell out of touch, and there's nothing that we can do to bring him back. And it would be, I love doing this show, but if it meant not doing this show because he was still here, I'd change that in a heartbeat. Absolutely, because he left behind, some family that now can no longer have him around, family and friends. I mean, John was he was a great fucking dude. Like, and I'll say that every time we do this show, he was just a great guy, not mean, not, just very unassuming, lover of life, freaking funny, just loved to laugh. Like, just, oh God, the times that we would laugh and just do dumb shit, it was amazing. Okay. I don't know, what happened. Maybe he felt like he didn't have any friends or anything, but if that happens, if you feel yourself going down a road that, just feels a little bit, off, or you feel like you're going down a bad path, seek out help. Okay. Whether it's somebody that can, somebody that knows you, I know if I ever need to, I can call this guy right over here to my side, and I can be like, dude, I need to talk. I got some shit I got to hash out. It's going to suck. We might lose out on 2 or 3 hours of sleep, but we're going to hash things out and try to get on a good path. Okay. If you are not fortunate to have somebody like my ride or die over here, or a family member, or a service member, or a teammate, or a ranger buddy. If you are unable to find somebody that can help you out, there are resources out there available for you. Okay.
Yes, there
There
are.
is the National Suicide Prevention Hotline. You can call either 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273. Type the word TALK, TALK. You can also dial 988. That's 988. And then once you get on there, you can press you press option 1 to speak to somebody, and they'll get you some help. The nice thing about 988 is you can also text that as well. I know we live in a very communication savvy world and culture and society nowadays where a lot of people text messages. That's an option now too. Okay. Everybody has a story that deserves to be told. Okay. There are times when things get tough. Call somebody, reach out, let them know. I mean, it takes a brave person to admit that they need help, but you know what? That's one thing that the GWAT generation and military folks in general, 9 times out of 10, they're tenacious people. They're brave. Okay. We get into our own head sometimes about, oh, well, like the stigma that we talked about. Oh, guys don't talk to therapists. Fuck that shit. We do. It's break down that stigma. There's guys that are getting help because they listen to somebody like Kyle saying, with the Ranger guys, like, I never thought about this before, and now it's just like, holy shit, it changed my life for the better. My relationship with my wife is better. It's just like, it's amazing. It's like I've opened my eyes and I'm seeing the world so differently now. Whatever that looks like, reach out and get help, whether it's a suicide prevention hotline, whether it's a family member, somebody you trust that you can talk to about this kind of stuff. But 22 a day is the average number of civilians, or excuse me, the average number of veterans that are committing suicide today. And that's a bigger epidemic than COVID was, because I said it's kind of over now.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Eh.
But it's an epidemic nevertheless that is still here.
Yeah.
Okay, we have to solve this. That's kind of our mission with this, is we want to keep people around. We need to stop this bullshit. So we would love for you to help us out, pass this along. Seek, this can easily be something you can tell your friends about, tell them about this. Like, hey, these guys
is caring, baby.
Sharing is caring. Like, the Hispanic dude's got a nice haircut. The white guy's got a big ass head. I get it. I know. I got a big fucking nugget. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We know this. Okay. But you got to understand too.
I mean, it's a symmetrical ass head, so at least you got that going for you.
Yeah, but I got like I got a hill and I got a saddle, right? 2 hills and a saddle in the middle. When I shave my head, you're just like, ugh. It's fucking awful. But just remember, folks, remember those 4 parts of the Battle Bros Code. Be tenacious, refuse to surrender, obliterate your obstacles,
seek
and
out
help in a time of need. Okay. If you can do those, you're going to be around for a long time, and we want to keep you here for a long time. Okay. So I'm going to hand it off to Alamo. He's going to take care of all the social media shit before we sign off. But
all right. So last
do it.
Thing on our list is joining us on the social medias. If you want to catch us over on Facebook, you can catch us at facebook.com/battlebros.podcast. You can also catch us at at @battlebros_podcast on the Instagram. You can also find us over on the Twitter space, or the, as you know, my buddy here, Mac Ola, calls it the Insta-Twit.
No. So the thing that I saw, it was YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook in the future have all combined, so it's called
Insta-Twit.
You Twit Face. So
you Twit Face. You can find us over at the Twitter at Battle Bros PC.
We just derailed the whole awesome.
We sure the hell did. If you want to catch us on the audio platforms, you can catch us over on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon.
Cast Iron Skillet.
That's right.
Not really.
Amazon Music, iHeartRadio. We are currently on 5 platforms, y'all. Check us out on 8 platforms you feel like catching us on.
If you just get on social media, get on the Google box and freaking
social media.
Yeah, check out Battle Bros Podcast. You'll find us. We have a YouTube channel, all that shit.
Right.
So.
Also, you can catch us on. Yep. You can also catch us on Le Rumble at rumble.com. Just search Battle Bros, all one word, lowercase. You can find us there and follow us there on that channel. If you'd like to contact us, you can do that at battlebrospc at gmail.com. And don't forget, when you're on YouTube and Rumble, like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell so that you can continue to get our content and share.
Like we mentioned earlier, it's not necessarily, you might not be the one that needs to hear this message, okay?
Correct.
What you can do though is, pay it forward, pass it along, okay? You might pass this along to somebody, they pass along to somebody else, and it get the message that we're talking about gets to somebody, and they're just like, hey, yeah, I needed to hear that. And like, listen, man, it's like with that guy I was mentioning earlier, and I don't want to say his name for just privacy concerns and just being respectful of his situation, but like he was like, hey man, I might need to call you because I'm trying to improve myself and quit drinking. I'm like, he's like, can I call you? I'm like, fuck yeah, you can. I said, I can't guarantee I'm gonna be able to answer all the time, but like, we're vets, man. We got to help each other out. Like, straight up, we're one of the most resilient subcultures of society, and like, we need to keep our fucking tribe strong. So let's do that, shall we? So anything else, dude? Oh yeah, one last thing. Please check out Sassy Girl Apothecary. That's our friend Amelia. She makes homemade soaps and whatnot. They're cheap. They're like $5 plus shipping. It's good stuff. It's all natural ingredients. It's not going to make you break out and shit. I got real sensitive skin because I'm a bitch. And she makes some really cool stuff. Like I use the soap that smells like it's denim and leather scented, and it's cool because it's good for my skin. It's all natural and it smells awesome too.
Dare I say, even though for a guy it makes your skin feel
fucking fantastic.
Soft.
But yeah, Alamo, I got Alamo some of that stuff for his birthday. It's the rum and coffee, and he fucking loves this shit. So check it out. Give her some love. She's a good friend of ours that we've known for a long time. She's a small business owner, all that good shit. So thank you again to Kyle for coming in and telling us his amazing story. The biggest thing is we want to share these stories of guys guys and gals that are larger than life, that are awesome, that did a great service to this country, but just also to show them, hey, we did all this cool shit, but we're still fucking human beings. We still need help. We still got to fix ourselves. So that interview was so much far and away better than I ever thought it was going to be. So thank you again to Kyle.
Yeah,
thank you for everybody at home watching this episode. If you like what you see, like we said, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, check it out, pass it along, tell your friends. We're pretty cool. We're kind of we're here to do cool stuff. So, but thank you again for tuning in. This has been episode 056. This has been the Veteran Interview Panel, the VIP number 6, with Kyle Oswald. He was our guest today. Thank you so much to Kyle for coming on and telling us your amazing story. That is all we got for this week. We will hopefully be back next week to tackle our next interview and or topic. Thanks for stopping by and checking us out. And until the next time, this has been the Battle Bros Podcast with myself, Mac, and this studly motherfucker over here, Alamo. Come back and check us out again, and we appreciate your time. Just remember, be tenacious, refuse to surrender, obliterate your obstacles, seek out help in a time of need. You can do those 4 things, you're going to be right as rain, okay? Stay around and check us out next time. Until then, deuces.
Battle Bros out.